Please, colleagues, take your seats. So, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, friends, it's a great pleasure for me to welcome you here in Geneva for this intersessional meeting of the Ottawa Convention. As you all know, last year we celebrated the 25th anniversary of the convention. And I think we all agree that this convention continues to be a success. It's indeed it's a success story because of all the work carried out throughout the years by state parties, by you, and also the important partnership between states and civil society. So we will need to ensure that that we continue demonstrating this commitment in going forward, and the next 3 days are just another opportunity to do so. So I certainly would not like to start this meeting without thanking my predecessor, Ambassador Alvaro Ayala Melendez of Colombia, who spared no effort to take the convention forward last year and presided over the successful 20th meeting of state parties in November. I feel honored that the responsibility of presiding over the convention has been passed to Germany, and that I have the privilege to chair our meeting today. During the 20th meeting of state parties, we were pleased to hear many states, parties, and organizations on the occasion of the 25th anniversary paying tribute to the convention and its vision, and committing to continue working in partnership to make the objectives of the convention a reality, objectives which are reachable and tangible. Colleagues, this convention has very noble objectives and has certainly done a lot for humanity. I think we can all agree. I would even be dismayed to think where we would be without this convention and its contribution to the body of work dedicated to the protection of civilians and the methods and limitations on the means used to wage war. I want to stop briefly here and ask all of us to stand up for a minute of silence for all victims and survivors of anti-personnel mines and their families. Thank you. Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, our progress under this convention has been tremendous, certainly, but the challenges ahead are mounting with new conflicts, the use of anti-personnel mines by some states, and the use of improvised anti-personnel mines by armed non-state actors. In the words of His Royal Highness Prince Mirit, Special Envoy to the Convention, we must do more and we must do better. In approximately 17 months, we will gather for the 5th Review Conference, an event which takes place every 5 years, at which time the Oslo Action Plan will have run its course. So, what story are we going to tell then? Therefore, we should use this week's intersessional meetings to do 2 things. First, let us focus with even greater intensity to those Oslo actions which have proven challenging to implement. They deserve some of our greatest attention. And second, let us use this week's meeting to begin to look forward to initiate thinking on matters that will need to be considered by all of us in the lead up to the 5th Review Conference and beyond, such as matters related to environment and improvised anti-personal mines, two focus areas of the German presidency, as you know. We will have to take stock of our progress and our remaining challenges and decide how we organize our work for the next 5 years while not losing sight of our 2025 commitment to implement our convention time-bound obligations to the furthest extent possible. Above all, we must focus on implementation for as long as the convention's objectives are not reached. We owe it to those that have passed. We owe it to landmine survivors. We owe it to their families, mine-affected communities, and those who have worked and continue to work tirelessly for a mine-free world. Together, we can collaborate and encourage each other to meet our common objectives. The key word here is together. Without the strengthening of cooperation and assistance, our convention will falter. We must do better to coordinate our efforts in this regard. And we have also to make sure that we do not compromise with the norm the convention has established. We are the keepers of this norm. Efforts need to be maintained in this difficult moment. I'm looking forward to your engagement during this informal meetings, your cooperation with all of you. And with this, allow me now to offer the floor to Switzerland for some remarks as our host. I have the pleasure of offering the floor to Laurent Masmejean, acting permanent representative of Switzerland to the Conference on Disarmament. So please, Laurent, the floor is yours.
Merci, Monsieur le Président, Monsieur le Directeur, Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs. En tant que représentant de l'État hôte, c'est avec grand plaisir que je souhaite souhaiter la bienvenue à Genève aux participants à ces réunions Intersessions. Nous sommes particulièrement honorés d'accueillir à nouveau cette importante rencontre essentielle au fonctionnement et à la mise en œuvre de notre convention. Je voudrais en tout premier lieu remercier la présidence allemande de notre convention et plus spécifiquement l'ambassadeur Goebel pour son dévouement à cette tâche et son engagement sans faille. Je suis également particulièrement honoré de pouvoir m'exprimer devant cette assemblée ce matin aux côtés d'éminents représentants du Centre international humanitaire de déminage de Genève et des survivants aux mines antipersonnelles. Monsieur le Président, chers collègues, comme cela a été relevé, l'année dernière a été marquée par le 25e anniversaire de notre convention. Les célébrations qui ont ponctué cet événement ont mis deux éléments en exergue, des éléments en partie paradoxaux. Le premier, qui est réjouissant, est que la vaste majorité des membres de l'ONU ont adhéré à notre traité. De vastes étendues de terres contaminées ont été débarrassées des mines antipersonnelles et des dizaines de millions de ces armes ont été détruites. Surtout, un nombre incalculable de vies humaines ont pu être préservées. Mais le deuxième point mis en avant, lui, souligne que les défis encore à relever afin de remplir les buts de notre convention sont non seulement significatifs, mais que de nouveau se matérialisent. L'aspiration à ce que la dépollution des zones contaminées des États parties à la Convention soit complétée d'ici 2025, affirmée lors de la 3e conférence d'examen, ne pourra probablement pas être réalisé dans son ensemble malgré les nombreux efforts consentis. D'importantes avancées sont encore nécessaires en vue de l'universalisation de notre convention. Et l'emploi croissant de mines antipersonnelles improvisées par des acteurs non étatiques ou de nouveaux conflits internationaux ont pour corollaire une augmentation du nombre de victimes de ces armes. Dans ce contexte, nous tenons à saluer le programme de nos réunions intersessions qui doivent nous permettre d'œuvrer à l'élaboration de réponses à ces défis ainsi qu'à d'autres et de préparer au mieux la prochaine Assemblée des États parties alors que nous allons graduellement nous diriger vers la 4e conférence d'examen de notre convention. Cet événement constituera un important jalon et une occasion de prendre les décisions nécessaires à la bonne mise en œuvre de nos conventions. Et nous tenons à ce sujet à saluer la candidature du Cambodge à en assumer la présidence. Pour sa part, la Suisse entend continuer à s'investir résolument en faveur de la réalisation des objectifs de nos conventions et c'est avec cet objectif à l'esprit qu'elle a lancé son nouveau plan d'action portant sur la lutte anti-mines pour la période 2023-2026, plutôt cette année. La dépollution des zones contaminées figure bien entendu au centre des priorités de ce plan d'action, tout comme la poursuite du soutien à la Convention d'Ottawa ou à celle d'Oslo. Il vise également à ce que nous saisissions au mieux les opportunités offertes par les approches innovantes dans la lutte anti-mines. La Suisse poursuivra bien entendu son soutien à de multiples pays affectés par les mines et déploiera par ailleurs un effort particulier ces prochaines années en faveur de l'Ukraine qui est confrontée par une nouvelle contamination massive par les mines, les armes à sous-munitions et les autres engins explosifs. Monsieur le Président, chers collègues, cette vaste nouvelle contamination nous rappelle que nous sommes loin d'avoir atteint la dernière ligne droite en matière de déminage humanitaire. Elle doit nous amener à poursuivre nos efforts sans relâche, voire les redoubler. Et c'est avec ces mots que je souhaite réitérer une fois encore combien la Suisse est honorée d'accueillir cette réunion, tout en vous souhaitant des travaux fructueux. Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Laurent, and thank you to Switzerland for the tremendous support to the implementation of the convention, but also thank you to you personally for your personal engagement in the work of the convention and in the committees. Allow me now to offer the floor to Ambassador Stefano Toscano, Director of the GICHD. Stefano, we are very grateful for the commitment and the continued support of GICHD to these meetings and your organization's commitment in this regard. So please, the floor is yours.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Monsieur le Président, cher Thomas, chère Madame, cher Laurent, Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, chers collègues. C'est un grand honneur et un plaisir pour moi de faire ces remarques d'ouverture aujourd'hui. J'aimerais remercier la présidence, l'unité d'appui, ainsi que mes collègues du centre, inclus Suzanne, qui s'est beaucoup engagée comme toujours, pour leur travail dévoué dans l'organisation de ces réunions intersessions. La Convention sur l'interdiction des mines antipersonnelles, avec son impact concret et positif sur la vie de nombreux individus dans le monde, est sans aucun doute une réussite. Pourtant, nous vivons une période d'instabilité avec des conflits armés qui éclatent ou persistent dans de nombreuses régions du monde, tandis que d'autres États luttent encore pour se libérer de la contamination qui les affecte depuis longtemps. Il en résulte un risque accru lié aux engins explosifs qui causent d'immenses dommages aux personnes et aux communautés dans le monde entier. Nous devons donc redoubler nos efforts pour faire respecter les normes établies par la Convention et veiller à ce qu'elles ne soient pas érodées. L'accélération des progrès vers l'universalisation de la Convention et le renforcement de notre engagement en faveur de sa pleine mise en œuvre restent fondamentaux. Le plan d'action d'Oslo nous a donné une feuille de route ambitieuse, mais réaliste et mesurable, pour guider nos efforts en vue d'une mise en œuvre plus solide de la Convention et pour renforcer la qualité, l'efficacité et l'efficience de notre travail. À l'approche de la 5e conférence d'examen de la Convention, nous devons commencer à identifier les domaines de la mise en œuvre du plan d'action qui pourraient avoir besoin d'être renforcés, ainsi que d'autres qui n'ont peut-être pas été classés comme prioritaires de manière adéquate. À cet égard, permettez-moi de réitérer l'importance du partage d'informations par les États parties sur les progrès accomplis dans la concrétisation des engagements du plan d'action. Monsieur le Président, le Centre de Genève constate avec satisfaction que les réunions intersessions examineront certains des aspects clés de la mise en œuvre de la Convention qui requièrent encore des efforts dédiés à leur pleine réalisation. La lutte anti-mine bénéficie de l'intégration effective de la dimension de genre et de la diversité. Nous devons désormais nous concentrer sur les résultats en ce qui concerne l'égalité et l'inclusion, en nous appuyant sur des engagements accrus et des ressources ciblées. Le GSIHD est activement engagé dans ce domaine. Le Centre travaille avec des partenaires dans les pays affectés pour renforcer les capacités en fournissant des évaluations, des formations basées sur les compétences, des formations au leadership inclusif, un soutien dans les plans de travail communs, une assistance technique continue et des visites de contrôle. Nous encourageons vivement les États parties et les autres partenaires à tirer parti des ressources et du soutien disponible. Il est également important de réfléchir aux questions liées à la planification en temps opportun de la réalisation des obligations en vertu de l'article 5. Une planification anticipée permet d'identifier et de mettre en place les structures et les processus nécessaires, tant opérationnels que juridiques, qui permettront de traiter toute contamination résiduelle possible de manière sûre, durable, efficace et efficiente. Par le biais d'ateliers et d'un soutien direct en matière de planification stratégique, des normes et des solutions personnalisées de gestion de l'information, le Centre aide actuellement les États désireux de mieux comprendre comment se préparer à la phase réactive de la dépollution des terrains. Enfin, il est très apprécié que ces réunions permettent de réfléchir aux moyens de mieux intégrer les considérations environnementales dans les efforts de mise en œuvre, un sujet qui n'a pas encore reçu suffisamment d'attention de la part de notre communauté. À travers plusieurs publications, le Centre a exploré les conséquences négatives non intentionnelles des opérations d'action anti-mine sur l'environnement, telles que la dégradation causée par certaines méthodes de pollution, ainsi que le potentiel transformatif des interventions visant à le protéger, dans le cadre de l'agenda 2030 pour le développement durable. Actuellement, le Centre analyse les tendances et les bonnes pratiques concernant la contribution de l'action anti-mine à la résilience au changement climatique. Nous présenterons les résultats de cette analyse plus tard dans l'année. Monsieur le Président, le secteur de la lutte anti-mine a connu des succès considérables. 30 États parties ont déclaré avoir achevé la mise en œuvre de l'article 5 et d'autres ne sont plus très loin de mettre en œuvre les obligations de la Convention qui sont assorties d'un délai. De nouvelles réussites dans la lutte contre les mines peuvent en effet être obtenues si le secteur continue à fournir un soutien ciblé et efficace aux États parties touchés. Dans la situation d'urgence, si je peux me permettre, ne fait plus les titres des médias. Il nous faut également relancer le soutien aux États qui, tout en ayant accompli des efforts et des progrès considérables, ne sont plus qu'à quelques pas de la réalisation de leurs obligations sous l'article 5 et ont encore besoin d'un appui final pour accomplir ces obligations dans les meilleurs délais. Je souhaite à toutes et à tous une réunion productive qui nous aidera à préparer de manière efficace la 21e Assemblée des États parties et la prochaine conférence d'examen de 2024. Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président.
Merci, Stefano. Thank you very much. Thank you to you and the whole team of the GICHD for their important and invaluable contributions to the implementation of our convention. Now, dear colleagues, I would like to turn to Ms. Salma Guzo. I think Madame Salma Guzo is a friend of the convention and a former Paralympic swimmer who joins us from Bosnia and Herzegovina in representation of mine-affected communities and will, I think, set us on the right track for the next 3 days to come. So thank you very much, Selma, for joining us today. And please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is my honor and a pleasure to be here with you today. As far as I can see, I believe that the coming days will be useful and fulfilling. Allow me to share my appreciation to Germany and the state parties for giving me an opportunity to participate and to stand here in front of you as a survivor from Bosnia and Herzegovina. You see, Bosnia and Herzegovina was one of the first countries in the world to join the Convention on the Prohibition of Anti-Personnel Mines in 1998. At that time, we were a country devastated by these awful weapons. Many saw the terrible consequences of landmines in our country. It is now 25 years since I became a victim of landmine. My accident happened 3 years after the war has ended. One pleasant visit on a Sunday evening to a countryside near Sarajevo changed my life. It was around 5 p.m. when we were walking when I had heard an explosion and felt something hot sliding down my leg. I realized that I had lost my leg. My life since then has been a roller coaster. When I look at my life now, reflecting on my life before and after the accident, I can see a lot of ups and downs. Road of recovery was very difficult. I remember the first time I was fitting my new leg and the pain that I have felt. I was afraid how my friends will react because then I felt that I was not equal as them, as one of my body parts was missing. After my accident, my parents had to struggle to be able to care for me. Mine victim is not only the person who suffers the accident, but also his or her family with the community more broadly. Special recognition to those who care for persons who are injured or the families left behind of those killed. With the support of my family and friends, I became a graduate journalist, professional swimmer, and active member in my community. Still, I didn't manage to get appropriate employment in my country. I was able to move forward, receive rehabilitated, and see firsthand the progress in mine clearance. I have been fortunate to be in a country where there are challenges on clearance and victim assistance exists, but my city, Sarajevo, finally was recently declared mine-free. But as I stand here today, I cannot think about thousands of survivors and their family members, people still living in affected areas, and challenges they face every day. However, other persons injured by mines in other countries are facing even greater challenges. Those persons have yet to receive assistance and continue living surrounded by landmines because clearance is a challenge due to security situation, lack of resources, or even low national ownership. In this beautiful city, it is safe to pass by the lake, but what about that many women have to walk near minefields to fetch water, or children have to go near minefields just to go to school? I remind you that the new casualties are being registered in places like Colombia, Ukraine, Sudan, and Yemen. Assistance needs to go to places with emerging needs, but also to places like Ecuador, Peru, Zimbabwe, Democratic Republic of the Congo, Senegal, which could meet their mine clearance deadline by 2025 if they were to receive assistance for their clearance programs. Remember that there are many survivors today that still need support. So while you are taking out the landmines and destroying them, making sure that people can walk freely and use the land, please do not forget that the needs of victims will stay the same. Mine-free is not victim-free. I will ask you to keep that in mind and not forget the victims. I will thank the donor countries for their support to my country and other countries that receive funds for mine clearance, but also remind the countries and all others in a position to help to extend support for victim assistance and development. Assistance to victims is conscious need and cannot stop. I call on those countries in the room that have not yet joined the convention to make their part towards a mine-free where survivors' rights are guaranteed and their needs met. Thank you all for taking care of what is the most valuable and sacred, human life and human limbs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Selma, for your impressive remarks. We really appreciate you joining us for this opening today, and especially also reminding us that there's a reality behind all this, and that our work has real implications to the life of mine-affected communities. And as you said, I think this is very important. Our objective, a world free of anti-personnel mines, does not mean that our job is done, because they are the victims who will still need our support and our help. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, dear colleagues, before moving on, please allow me to make some general remarks to our meeting and some housekeeping. First of all, I think, you know, the intersessional meetings have always been, as it was already expressed by speakers, have always been an opportunity to share detailed information on progress and challenges, as well as our experiences and expertise. And there's a lot of expertise in the room, I think. I remind you that I would like to remind you that these meetings are informal meetings, and please use this opportunity to have also an informal discussion, and don't shy away from making informal interventions as well. With this being said, it's time to start our work. So some indications, as usual, we would ask that if you would like to take the floor, to please register with the implementation support unit, and indicating the specific agenda item as per the program. The implementation support unit, by the way, who is sitting on my left, is also here to engage with you concerning any outstanding obligations you might have, including to support you in the submission of your Article 7 report, should your state be delayed in doing so. Finally, over the next 3 weeks, 3 weeks, no, it's just 3 days. Don't be afraid. We stop on Wednesday. No, over the next 3 days, we will benefit from interpretation in 5 languages. And I take this opportunity to thank already the interpreters in advance for their work. Should you have a written statement, I would ask you to please hand it into the ISU by email well ahead of your planned presentation, in order to the ISU to provide it to the interpreters to facilitate their work. With this, I would like now to invite the chairs of the committees and the representative of the gender focal points to join us for the second agenda item on the program. And I would like to thank all the colleagues here, Ambassador Stefan, Madame Guzzo, Laurent, for being with me here for the opening. And just a short interruption for changing the panel and the podium, and then we will continue directly. Please keep seated. We're going directly on with the second agenda item. So, thank you. Observations of the convention's president and the committees, and I thank very much all the committee chairs, as well as the representatives of the gender focal points, for joining me here for this session. So this session is not intended to be long, but is thought to give you a brief overview of the work of the committees and the planned work for this week, as well as some information on the documentation which you can find already on the Intersessional meeting page on the convention website. So it's a little bit to set the picture for the 3 days to come. And with this, I would like to hand over the floor to the chair of the Committee on Victim Assistance, which is chaired by Uganda. And so, Mr. Chairperson, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Dear colleagues, it is an honor for Uganda as Chair of the Victim Assistance Committee to join you in this area. I would like to thank my fellow committee members from Italy, Slovenia, and Zambia for joining me in this convention, intersessional meetings. And in line with the purpose of the committee, our efforts build on the solid foundation constructed by the states parties on the issue of victim assistance to support states parties in their national efforts to strengthen and advance victim assistance. In the interest of, first, we are encouraged by improvements in the quality of Article 7 reports on victim assistance and the updated information on implementation of the victim assistance commitments of the Oslo Action Plan. While there is always room to improve reporting, we highly appreciate your hard work in this regard, and we welcome the information provided by the states parties, 23 of them, on their efforts to maintain and strengthen national support mechanisms, including by designating national entities to coordinate victim assistance and ensure its integration into broader national frameworks. These states parties also reported applying multi-sector approach to implement victim assistance, and we consider this the backbone for the solid implementation mechanisms, and we congratulate those states that have shown progress in this regard. We are pleased that 8 states parties reported no casualties for 2022, showing a similar trend to the year before. And we also observed a significant decrease in new casualties in few states in comparison to last year. The committee commends all efforts made by these states to achieve this important milestone. We also appreciate the states parties in sharing the challenges they encounter in assisting mine victims. One of the common challenges reported by several states parties is the challenge of conducting national surveys to identify mine victims and understanding their needs and the challenges they face. As we know, collecting this information is essential for planning efforts and resource mobilization. We look forward to providing any support and advice to states parties to overcome these challenges. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson, and thank you for your engagement and in chairing the committee and victim assistance. And with this, I would like to hand over the floor to the chair of the Committee on Article 5 implementation, which is chaired by France. So please, sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Merci, Monsieur le Président. Excellences, distingués délégués, Mesdames, Messieurs, la France a l'honneur et le plaisir de présider le comité sur la mise en œuvre de l'article 5 de notre convention en 2023 et de travailler très étroitement en lien avec la Colombie, l'Irak et la Suède, également membres de ce comité. Je saisis cette occasion pour remercier mes collègues du comité de l'article 5 pour leurs efforts et leur collaboration au cours du premier semestre de cette année. Je voudrais également vous remercier, Monsieur le Président, pour me donner l'occasion de discuter des observations préliminaires formulées par le comité. Je serai bref dans la mesure où ces observations sont dès à présent disponibles en ligne, simplement pour souligner que ces observations sont fondées sur les informations fournies par les États à travers les rapports élaborés au titre de l'article 7 de la Convention, ainsi que des plans de travail ou des plans d'action actualisés et des demandes de prolongation qui nous ont été adressées. Nous diffuserons ces observations à tous à la fin de ces réunions intersessions. Comme vous pourrez le constater, ou en tout cas en prendre connaissance, le comité a identifié certaines lacunes dans les rapports qui nous ont été soumis, et nous apprécierions bien entendu toute information supplémentaire de la part des États concernés. Dans l'hypothèse ou dans le cas où ces informations s'avéreraient incorrectes, n'hésitez pas, bien entendu, à nous le faire savoir afin que nous puissions rectifier ces informations. Je voudrais également remercier l'ensemble des États qui se sont mobilisés avec nous et qui nous ont fourni des informations substantielles sur les progrès liés à la mise en œuvre de leurs obligations au titre de l'article 5. Permettez-moi à ce stade, Monsieur le Président, de mettre en exergue un certain nombre d'éléments contenus dans nos observations préliminaires. Tout d'abord, nous vous sommes reconnaissants, et je m'adresse aux États, pour la qualité et la richesse des informations que vous avez soumis dans vos rapports au titre de l'article 7 et dans vos demandes de prolongation, ainsi que dans les plans d'action actualisés. Nous avons toutefois constaté qu'à la mi-juin, 11 États particulièrement affectés par les mines n'avaient pas encore soumis de rapport au titre de l'article 7. Et nous avons également constaté à cette date que 5 de ces États partis n'avaient pas également soumis de rapport depuis 2 ou plusieurs années. Et donc, nous souhaitons que cette situation puisse s'améliorer dans les mois qui viennent. Nous ne saurions trop insister sur l'importance pour les États parties, bien entendu, de se conformer à la décision des États parties prise en Assemblée générale concernant leur demande de prolongation. Et nous nous félicitons de pouvoir dialoguer avec les États et leurs représentants sur cette question au cours des 2 prochains jours. Nous soulignons également dans ces observations la situation actuelle de non-conformité ou d'infraction de l'Érythrée à la suite de l'expiration de son délai de prolongation, sans qu'une nouvelle demande de prolongation ait été soumise au comité. Et nous espérons, bien entendu, avoir des nouvelles de la part de l'Érythrée dans les prochains jours, afin de pouvoir continuer à dialoguer de manière tout à fait coopérative avec ses représentants sur cette question. À l'heure actuelle, il ne s'agit pas simplement d'une affaire liée au comité simplement en lien avec le comité de l'article 5, mais plus largement d'une question qui nous affecte tous en qualité d'État partie à la Convention. Je crois savoir, Monsieur le Président, que vous examinerez, que vous discuterez de cette question ce mercredi. Et donc, je n'en dirai pas plus à ce stade. Deuxièmement, bien que de nombreux défis subsistent, les États ont signalé des progrès significatifs dans la mise en œuvre de leurs obligations au titre de l'article 5. Beaucoup d'États parties ont également signalé avoir été confrontés à la contamination non seulement de mines, mais également d'une multitude de munitions, incluant des engins explosifs improvisés. Nous sommes ravis de voir un certain nombre d'États dans la salle particulièrement affectés par ces engins explosifs improvisés. Et nous nous réjouissons de pouvoir recueillir leurs informations actualisées sur la situation dans leur pays. Comme vous pouvez le constater, le programme, à partir du programme de l'un des premiers panels thématiques, abordera ces questions. Et là également, nous nous réjouissons de votre engagement à ce sujet. Troisièmement, nous sommes reconnaissants des mises à jour fournies par les États dans la mise en œuvre des différents aspects liés au plan d'action d'Oslo. Ce plan d'action d'Oslo contient certains éléments clés liés à la mise en œuvre de la Convention qui, s'ils sont mis en œuvre, peuvent effectivement, peuvent nous aider à remplir nos obligations de manière efficace et efficiente. Et on pourrait citer parmi les actions liées à ce plan d'action, les efforts pour maintenir à jour les normes en lien avec les meilleures pratiques internationales. Je pense aux normes IMAS, International Mines Action Standards. Je pense également aux efforts pour fournir et renforcer l'éducation aux risques et à la réduction des risques, les efforts liés à l'intégration du genre et de la diversité dans la mise en œuvre de la Convention et dans la mise en œuvre de ce plan d'action, et puis les efforts menés par les États pour s'assurer qu'ils disposent d'une capacité nationale durable en place pour faire face aux différentes menaces qui peuvent subsister après la dépollution. Quatrièmement, je voudrais féliciter l'Ukraine pour avoir soumis une demande de requête de prolongation en temps opportun. Nous travaillons avec les représentants de l'Ukraine dans l'esprit traditionnel de coopération qui anime les membres de cette convention. Plus tard, nous nous réjouissons de prendre connaissance de la présentation des représentants ukrainiens sur leur demande de prolongation et des discussions subséquentes qui s'en suivront. Au final, le comité, dernière observation, le comité a été, vous vous en souvenez, mandaté par la 20e Assemblée des États parties pour évaluer le processus de l'article 5 à travers un examen attentif des décisions adoptées par les États parties concernant les demandes de prolongation des États affectés par les mines. Il a également été mandaté pour consulter l'ensemble des États parties à la Convention, notamment les États particulièrement affectés par les mines et les organisations intéressées pour recueillir leurs observations et identifier, le cas échéant, un terrain d'entente possible pour renforcer le processus d'examen des demandes soumises au titre de l'article 5. Et puis enfin, le comité a été mandaté par l'Assemblée des États parties de la 20e conférence des États parties pour élaborer des conclusions et des recommandations destinées à être présentées à l'occasion de la 21e Assemblée des États parties. Donc, nous vous informerons des démarches que nous avons accomplies à cet égard. Je voudrais remercier les États les États parties affectés par les mines dont les échéances sont dont les échéances arrivent en 2024 et 2025 et qui ont accepté de se joindre au comité pour une conversation, pour une discussion demain, pour solliciter donc votre avis sur un certain nombre de questions liées à la mise en œuvre de cet article 5. Donc, merci pour accepter cette invitation de principe et cette discussion. Je crois que les points de vue et les opinions des États parties spécialement affectés par les mines sont extrêmement importantes pour les membres du comité. Et donc, nous sommes bien entendu très reconnaissants de les partager avec nous. Nous aurons l'occasion de discuter également de cette question plus tard dans la journée à l'occasion du traitement de l'ordre du jour numéro 4. D'une manière générale, nous nous réjouissons véritablement de vos interventions au cours de notre session ce matin et cet après-midi, ainsi que durant le panel thématique demain. Nous invitons bien entendu toutes les délégations intéressées pour des discussions bilatérales et nous vous remercions par avance de votre disponibilité à cette fin. À mesure que nous nous dirigeons vers la 5e conférence d'examen, il est vraiment important de renforcer le dialogue, la conversation entre les États et les membres du comité. Et donc, je vous remercie à nouveau, vous tous, pour les efforts entrepris jusqu'à présent. Et je vous cède, Monsieur le Président, respectueusement la parole.
Philippe, thank you very much to France and the Committee on Article 5 implementation for this overview. And I just can encourage also all of you to take this opportunity of these meetings to engage with the committee and also to engage with the ISU when it comes to discuss any outstanding issues with regard of Article 5 implementation. And also just to confirm what has been said, we will take up the case of Eritrea, which unfortunately has turned into a non-compliance case when we are discussing the matters related to this committee and the matters related to the mandate of the president. As you know, this was a mandate given to the president to follow suit with the developments concerning Eritrea's Article 5 implementation. So with this, allow me to offer the floor to the chair of the Committee on the Enhancement of Cooperation and Assistance. This committee is chaired by Thailand, and so please, Madam, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's a pleasure to join you and our colleagues on this panel today. As the chair of the Committee on the Enhancement on Cooperation and Assistance, Thailand works together with Algeria, Japan, and the Netherlands. We wish to reiterate our support to Germany through its chairmanship and also our gratitude to the ISU for the excellent work. Like other committees, the preliminary observations of the committee are also available on the website, so we will not go into details on this document. We appreciate the information submitted by the state parties on matters related to cooperation and assistance, according to which we learned that the lack of resources remains a pressing issue of most mine-affected countries, and coordinating of international funding must be further strengthened and promoted. While national ownership is one of the key elements of successful cooperation and assistance, we also believe that the greater donor coordination and closer partnerships with affected states can also assist the states in their ongoing efforts to overcome barriers to completion. This is a unique part of our convention, which we should build upon. We look forward to hearing more from the states in a position to provide assistance on their coordination effort. We wish that our discussion in these coming days will help generate ideas on how we can improve. Tomorrow, the committee will explore this issue during our discussion, cooperation, assist and assistance, and the Oslo Action Plan toward improved cooperation and assistance. Well, allow me to highlight some of the committee's work from the preliminary observation as follows. First, the individualized approach carried out by the committee for years is an informal process for the affected states to seek assistance in implementing convention from states, organizations, and other stakeholders in a position to provide the assistance. This year, we have worked with Senegal to hold an individualized approach meeting on Wednesday. We encourage those who are invited to join us. The individualized approach meeting is an important opportunity for the states and other actors in position to support and engage with the states in need to learn about the challenges and needs to establish the connection which could lead to a dialogue and further cooperation and assistance. Second, the National MIPE Action Platform, an interagency dialogue, which contributes to strong commitment to the convention by enhancing national ownership of the affected state. From the committee's experience, the establishment of such platform could facilitate interagency dialogue, which address the remaining challenges on the ground. Since 2019, not many states have reported on the establishment of such platform, but at the same time, we noticed that a few states reported on their efforts to increase a dialogue or technical meetings with technical partners, which are also essential to their work as well. We wish to reiterate again that the National MIPE Action Platforms do not replace this meeting, but provide a time, place for all stakeholders to learn about progress, challenges, and also provide solutions that they could find together. This will foster collaboration and support that layering around our common goal. Third, the online reporting tool, which has been promoted through various activities. We welcome the increase of the use of the tool and will be reaching out to those who have used the tool to learn from their experience. In addition, we will continue encouraging its use among all state parties, including the states who has no obligation to report under Article 7, which could contribute to transparency and compliance to the convention. Fourth, the Cooperation and Assistance Fund, which was established by the 19th meeting of the state parties. The committee has been working with all stakeholders with an aim to facilitate and launch the first study and exchange visit through the fund. The committee is looking forward to updating about this effort in the near future. We wish to encourage the interested state parties and also our partners to approach the committee and also the ISU for further information on the work of the committee. Dear participants, we are approaching the 5th review conference next year. We need to work on how we can best ensure that cooperation and assistance within the framework of the convention is delivered to state parties in need in a timely, impactfully, and sustainable manner. We have a lot of work to do, and the committee wishes to reaffirm our readiness to work with our partners in this endeavor. I thank you.
Thank Thailand. I thank the chairperson of the Committee on Cooperation and Assistance for this overview, and also I would like to thank all the committee members for their work throughout the year. Colleagues, this gives me now the opportunity to say a few words on behalf of the Committee on Cooperative Compliance, which, as you know, is chaired by the presidency, and so Germany has the honor chairing this committee together with Norway, South Africa, Switzerland, and Turkey this year. And I would also like to thank my colleagues for the cooperation and work in this committee. I think there's certainly little more important than compliance with the provisions of the Anti-Personal Mined Land Convention. And Fortunate the treaty is to have an extremely high compliance rate. Even a number of states that are not party to the convention comply with provisions of the treaty. However, we have been faced with the alleged and confirmed use by states parties, and we have seen more than ever an increase in the use of mines globally by states and armed non-state actors. We, of course, have the duty to condemn these activities and see that the convention is upheld at all costs. As you know, the convention is a comprehensive framework. In this regard, all articles are mutually supportive, and they are here to ensure compliance with the provisions, and therefore we must ensure that all articles are respected. This includes reporting under Article 7 that has remained at an embarrassing low rate, and despite our efforts over the years, remains unfortunately low today. The enacting of national legislation under Article 9 is also an area which also we have made some progress, needs to accelerate to ensure that legislation is in place to penalize and sanction the use of anti-personnel mines by all individuals under jurisdiction or control of our states parties. We have forged long-term partnerships in this regard, primarily with the International Committee of the Red Cross, and more recently we have strengthened our partnership with the Interparliamentary Union. On the intersessional meetings page on the convention's website, you will find the committee's preliminary observations, which highlight the matters we are addressing within our mandate this year. The Secretariat, as I mentioned earlier, is ready to support your efforts. However, the honors to reach out to the ISU is on your shoulders. If you are unsure of the status of your state's implementation, so please do not hesitate to reach out to the ISU and examine the documents which are on the convention's website to see where your state stands on implementation and make course corrections as soon as possible. If we, the committees, have any information wrong, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. As I said, the documents online are preliminary observations so far. As already said, on Wednesday, we will come back to matters related to compliance, and I look forward to hearing from all of you on the matters, the compliance challenges that are before us. We all urge all of you to look at the documentation provided by the committee and prepare to take the floor on issues related to your state's compliance with the provisions of the convention. It is in the hand of all of us to strengthen the convention processes, specifically by adhering to the letter of our decisions. Importantly, we look forward to learning about any challenges you may face and to find a cooperative solution to overcoming them, because, as I may remind you, our committee is called the Committee on Cooperative Compliance, and that's the approach the committee has been taken with regard to all the issues which were put before it. With this short overview, now I would like to turn to our last speaker here at the podium, which is Henriette van Gulik. Henriette is a Deputy Permanent Representative to the Conference on Disarmament of the Kingdom of the Netherlands and a focal point on the Committee on Cooperation and Assistance. And she is representing the gender focal points of the committee today here. And as you know, this is a critical issue in all our implementation efforts and also a cross-cutting priority the German of our presidency this year. So Henriette, thank you for joining us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to deliver this statement on behalf of the gender focal points of the Anti-Personnel Mine Ban Convention. My country, the Netherlands, serves as a general focal point for the Committee on the Enhancement of Cooperation and Assistance, together with Colombia for the Committee on Article 5 implementation, Slovenia for victim assistance, and Norway for cooperative compliance. At the 4th review conference in Oslo, we ensured that each committee of the convention appoints a gender focal point. This guarantees that we think through a gender lens about integrating gender and diversity aspects in all areas of our work. The Oslo Action Plan highlights as a best practice the importance of integrating and mainstreaming gender considerations and taking the diverse needs and experiences of people in affected communities into account in mine ban programming. Action 3 of the Oslo Action Plan commits states parties to ensure that the different needs and perspectives of women, girls, boys and men are considered and inform all areas of convention implementation and mine action programs in order to deliver an inclusive approach. Although we have made progress in implementing our gender and diversity commitments, we know that there is room for improvement. In many cases, efforts carried out by states on gender and diversity have largely gone unreported, or they are reported on in very little detail. This is relevant for both states implementing the convention obligations as well as donor states that are in a position to contribute to mine action programs. Therefore, we encourage all states who have not yet done so to report in greater detail about the various gender and diversity aspects in their Article 7 reports. We all have a responsibility in this regard. In addition, we call upon states to ensure the full, effective and meaningful participation of women across all aspects of convention implementation, including in leadership roles. We, as gender focal points, are committed to strive to improve our approach and to present to the 21st meeting of states parties our experience and considerations to be taken into account in the lead up to and beyond the 5th review conference and the next action plan. Applying a gender lens leads to better results. It makes our work more targeted, more effective, and in many cases, more efficient. A gender-responsive mine action contributes to the achievement of sustainable development, including gender equality and peaceful and inclusive societies. And it also promotes the connection between mine actions and the SDGs. We have the opportunity through our implementation efforts to promote positive change in our societies. Let's take advantage of this. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Henriette, and thank you to all the gender focal points. And I think this is a matter which will accompany us not only during these 3 days, but also in the run-up to the review conference and well beyond. And indeed, it's not just up to the gender focal points raising the issues. I think this is an issue which we all have to keep in mind, and the gender lens is something which we all should make full use of. So as you can see, all the committees are here in the room, are ready to interact with you and to discuss matters related to their thematic area. I just can repeat my call to all of you to engage in conversation with these committees. and to make thus sure that our meeting will stipulate progress in all areas of implementation in the run-up to the meeting of states parties and with a view to the review conference to come. With this, we would move then to agenda item 3, which is matters related to the mandate of the Committee on Victim Assistance. I would kindly ask all of you to stay seated so that I can invite the members of this committee and the director of the ISU to join us here on the podium and to continue our work with the deliberations on the agenda item 3, matters related to the mandate of the Committee on Victim Assistance. So please stay seated. We will continue immediately.
Hit the hammer a little harder. Thank you.
Excellencies, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the agenda number 3 of the thematic session of the Committee on Victim Assistance. And I want to repeat that it is an honor for Uganda to chair this session. And I welcome my fellow committee members, Italy, Slovenia, and Zambia. In this session, we'll have interventions from the floor. And should you want to take the floor during this session on victim assistance, please do inform the ISU to ensure you are on the speakers list or raise your nameplate. So as a continuation on matters related to victim assistance, the committee observed that all the 23 states that provided updates on their victim assistance activities this year reported on availability of rehabilitation and assistive technology. We also noted, however, that difficulties and shortcomings continued hampering provision and delivery of comprehensive, affordable, and accessible or efficient rehabilitation services in several cases. We noted the important efforts made by states, parties, as well as by the World Health Organization and other stakeholders that such as the International Committee of the Red Cross, Humanity and Inclusion to address these challenges. We call on these states, parties, and other agencies to step up cooperation for rehabilitation and assistive technology and ensuring that this support is a prerequisite to empower mine survivors and affected families. As you know, this year, the Committee on Victim Assistance theme is mental health and psychosocial support. Our aim is to cast light on challenges faced in the provision of MHPSS. We thank the 15 states parties that have reported activities and efforts in this regard and noted that only 2 states parties have reported on peer support. We look forward to discussing this matter tomorrow morning at the panel discussion on MHPSS, and I would encourage you to join and participate in our discussions. We also appreciate increasing attention to gender and diversity in your reports beyond the disaggregations of data and recruitment of women. It is very important that states continue reporting in detail on efforts to integrate gender and diversity issues into their work. To conclude, there is one area in which we would welcome additional reporting, and that is on efforts to ensure socio-economic inclusion of landmine survivors. This relates to your efforts to ensure the socio-economic inclusion of mine survivors, including information on lifting barriers and other measures to ensure the full inclusion and participation of mine survivors and their representative organization. This area of reporting requires some improvement. Now, allow me to open the floor for interventions from states parties implementing the Victim Assistance Committee. May I call upon Albania for your intervention? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair, dear members of the committee, dear Director of the ISU. I would like to express my pleasure at participating to the work of this year in the sessional meeting of the Anti-Personnel Mine-Buying Convention, while already looking forward to the 21st meeting of the states parties in November this year. We took note of the preliminary observations on the status of implementation related to the victim assistance by the Committee on Victim Assistance. The institutions in charge in Albania are coming up with an update and addressing of the raised issues. I'm pleased also to inform that Albania aligned itself with the EU statement on victim assistance. Let me provide an update of the legal improvements taken place in my country, as well as the practical actions that were taken and the needs that need to be addressed. As we have previously informed, in April 2001, Albania approved a law on the implementation of the Anti-Personnel Mine-Ban Convention, on which the Ministry of Defense was tasked as the authority in charge of all mine action activities in the country, including on victim assistance. But as of 2021, the national contact point for mine and unexploded ordnance victim assistance was transferred from the Ministry of Defense to the Ministry of Health and Social Protection. Furthermore, in accordance with the law on inclusion and accessibility of the persons with disabilities, in May 2021, the Council of Ministers approved the National Action Plan for Persons with Disabilities 2021-2025. This action plan is fully in line with the principles and definitions of the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. The benefits for persons with disabilities are foreseen in both the law on social assistance in the Republic of Albania and the law on social care services in the Republic of Albania. The latter tasks all municipalities to draft their social action plans, based on which the municipalities conduct the needs analysis for social integrated services in their communities, identify vulnerable groups, and the services they need. Since the approval of these pieces of legislation, there is a noticeable improvement of accessibility in government and public infrastructure of those municipalities where local plans for accessibility and inclusion are under implementation. In discharging the tasks on victim assistance issues, the Ministry of Health and Social Protection works in close collaboration with the relevant institutions, including the local government authorities, persons with disabilities, and mine victims associations. Ministry of Health and Social Protection has continued the improvement of healthcare facilities infrastructure through reconstruction of 340 health centers, hospitals, and polyclinics. The improved infrastructure in primary health care has been accompanied with accreditation of quality standards to more than 260 health institutions, aiming toward the integration of social health services. The coverage and reimbursement of the drugs for the categories in need, including persons with disabilities, has continued regularly. The University Hospital in Tirana provides orthopedic prosthesis. The regional hospital in Kukas has also been transformed into a modern health service infrastructure and standards in operation for the northeastern region from which the most mine survivors come. Ministry of Health and Social Protection is cooperating with partners to improve the accessibility of services near the populations and continues to cooperate with UNDP on the implementation of the National Action Plan on Persons with Disability 2021-2025. In addition, Caritas Albania and Albanian Red Cross provide support for persons with disability to strengthen their resilience, mental health, and psychosocial health. They are also engaged in advocacy for the rights of persons with disabilities. The transfer of responsibility of the mine victim assistance from the Ministry of Defense to the Ministry of Health and Social Protection was indeed a very good move. but because of this transfer of responsibilities, the Ministry of Health and Social Protection needs some more time to update the central database of mine and unexploded ordnance victims to identify properly the specific needs of the various categories of mine survivors, to incorporate the mine victim groups in the whole set of national and sectoral strategies and action plans related to the persons with disabilities, and to address their problems. During the recent years, some mine victim assistance programs funded by foreign assistance were closed. The Albanian government is continuing its program on special assistance and reintegration into the society of the mine survivors, but there is need to fill the gap created by the closure of the assistance programs funded by donations. Specifically, there is need of additional funding for the repair and servicing the prostheses of the mine victims, as well as for the capacity building and improvement of physiotherapy department facilities in the Kukas Regional Hospital. Thank you very much for your support and for the cooperation.
Thank you, Albania. We know that Albania finalized mine clearance discussions years ago, and we congratulate Albania for staying engaged in efforts to integrate victim assistance into broader national frameworks. I also understand that you yourself were the president of the convention, and Albania certainly has a lot of experience to share, and we thank you. So let me call upon Somalia to take the floor.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, let me start by thanking His Ambassador Thomas Kubel, Ambassador of the Republic of Germany to the Conference on Disarmament, Italy, Slovenia, and Uganda, as well as Implementation Support Unit of Anti-Personnel Man-Ban Convention for organizing this crucial meeting in the emergence of intersessional meeting for the state bats. It's a great privilege to present the government of Somalia in this meeting to shed light on matters related to the victims' assistance in Somalia. As you may have heard, the National Security Forces in Somalia has been carrying out military operations in 2 states, namely Galmudug, Hirshabelle, and planning to progress to another 2 states, Southwest and Jubaland. The recurring armed conflict in Somalia for over the past 3 decades has obviously affected the life of the civilian population negatively, ultimately causing the loss of the lives and sustaining the lifelong injuries. Explosive ordnance, including IEDs, are still causing unprecedented number of casualties amongst the civilians. Since the last MSB meeting, 300 civilian casualties have been affected as a result of IED incidents, of which 92 civilian fatalities and 208 civilian injured, that counted for over 30% of all IEDs related casualties recorded across Somalia. Despite the significance of the impact, there is minimal intervention on the victim assistance to these days. Over the same period, certain mines and ERW incidents were all reported affecting 19 civilians across the regions. Suddenly, 58% of the victims were children. It was on 9th June 2023, just a few days ago, received the unfortunate incident report that injured 53 and killed 27, of which children between 10 and 15 years. They were playing football in the area when they came across the ARW. Compared to the public suffrage, the victim assistance pillar has been underfunded, and there is no significant assistance provided to the victims. The current situation in Somalia was aggravated by the massive displacement due to the hybrid factors, including intensive drought, seasonal flooding due to the climate change, insecurity, among other factors, making the humanitarian situation more complex and undermine victim assistance response as a national priority, as well as the humanitarian response. Somalia is among the group of 30 states to Anti-Personnel Man-Ban Convention who have reportedly responsibility for a significant number of survivors of explosive ordnance. The government has prioritized to establish comprehensive information on the number and the situation of persons with disability in Somalia through the recently formed National Disability Agency has been carrying out data collection across the 5 federal member states' Bandir regional administration. Questions related to the impacts of explosive ordnance have also been incorporated to the data collection tool. The survey report is expected to reflect the different needs and the perspectives of the women, girls, boys, and men. Upon the completion of the survey, a more accurate number of persons with disability can be reported during upcoming review conference in 2024. The Somali Explosive Management Authority continues to cooperate with the mine action operators and other government institutions to ensure the lineman survivors are not left behind in the government policies, frameworks, and the plans to meet wider disability needs in the country. In cooperation with all mine action partners, SEMA Information Management continues recording the victim as the mine victims and accident into the consolidated National Mine Action Database. The program will avail the data for any partner willing to implement projects on the victim assistance. Partners are also making efforts on recording age, gender, disaggregated data related to the IED casualties. The government budget is overstretched with other national priorities. Thus, to meet the convention's obligation and the national responsibilities, Somalia still seek financial assistance from the generous partners and donors of Somalia to address the needs of persons with disability, include those survived from explosive ordnance. Resource mobilization remains our top priority for the implementation of the National Action Plan on the Victim and Disability Assistance, which was launched last year in April 2022. In conclusion, I would like to thank the organizers once again and to appreciate you all for your meaningful participation. I thank you.
Thank you, Somalia. And in spite of the conflict of 3 decades, the mine action activities in Somalia are gearing towards to ensure that landmine victims are appreciated and are supported. The efforts on data collection by the Somali government are welcome, and from the statement, they call upon various stakeholders to support Somalia in integrating and helping the landmine victims. And thank you very much. Now let me call upon Taki to take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We would like to thank the Committee on Victim Assistance for their tireless efforts since the 20th MSP. Full version of this statement will be published online. Mr. Chair, the minefields in Turkey are fenced and marked as military zones and constantly observed by military personnel to ensure the effective exclusion of civilians. 32 mine IED casualties were identified last year. Among them, 23 casualties were civilians. Our country has been the target of heinous terrorist attacks for decades. 28 of the 32 casualties, including 2 girls and 5 boys, were caused by improvised anti-personnel mines and placed by the PKK-YPG terrorist organization. Civilian casualties decreased by 52% compared to 2020 and 40% compared to 2021. Turmak ensures that women, girls, boys, and men can benefit equally from victim assistance services through emergency and continuing health care, physical rehabilitation, psychological and psychosocial support, and economic inclusion. Mr. Chair, I would like to provide brief information on efforts by my country for citizens with disabilities in general Turkey ratified CRPD in 2009 and integrated the principle of positive discrimination into Article 10 of its constitution in 2010. Disabled people can receive education to facilitate their business life, and all necessary supports and incentives are provided to them to that extent. The Ministry of Family and Social Services improved accessibility studies despite the adverse effects of the pandemic after the declaration of 2020 as the year of accessibility by our president. In 2021, the information guide for the disabled was published. In 2021, the ministry prepared the 2030 barrier-free vision document and announced the first national action plan for the rights of persons with disabilities in December 2022, covering the years 2023-2025. The National Disability Council is empowered to monitor and report on the implementation of the Comprehensive Independent Living Program. Regulation on the issuance of disabled identity cards and the creation of the National Disability Data System and the home care assistance were enacted in May 2023 to enable disabled citizens to benefit from various services, rights, and discounts. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Taki. The committee welcomes Taki's continued efforts in reducing landmine victims and also providing rehabilitation and psychosocial support. We also appreciate their efforts in the regulation, the policies that support landmine victims. Thank you very much. I now call upon Tajikistan to take the floor.
Dear chairs, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, let me express our gratitude to the Implementation Support Unit and the Committee of Victim Assistance for organizing this event. Next slide, please. With regards to victim assistance, we are implementing Tajikistan National Strategy on Humanitarian Mine Action for 2021-2030 in accordance with provision of the Oslo Action Plan on victim assistance. During a reporting period, we have achieved noticeable progress and improvements in the area of coordination, data collection, and inclusion of effective participation. We have established good level of coordination with the Ministry of Health and Social Protection and its structures, survivors organization, RCRC, Red Crescent Tajik Society, UN agencies, NGOs, and all they are members of the Victim Assistance Technical Working Group. And thus, we are achieving multi-sectoral efforts. Recently, TNMA actively cooperated with UNRCO and participate in the development of the glossary of recommended disability terms and abbreviation, which is now inclusive of landmine survivors. TNMA continue provision of consultative and advisory support to NGOs of survivors Takdir. With regards to Action 41, in 2023, 2 Victim Assistance Technical Working Group meetings conducted in the Khujan and Bokhta regional centers. And celebration of the International Mine Action Day for Mine Awareness and Assistance in Mine Action and 20th anniversary of Humanitarian Mine Action Program in Tajikistan gathered 28 survivors. It's worth to note that above meetings facilitate face-to-face meetings of survivors with 20 representatives of social protection departments, their mutual communication. In the result, certain survivors receive correct and precise information about their entitlements and pensions. Social protection departments also receive information about survivors and their needs. Unfortunately, on 8 May, 20-year-old student was killed due to the explosion of landmine when he was collecting mushrooms in the mountains area close to his village. Thus, at present, total number of casualties resulting from accident with mines is 888, 351 killed and 537 injured. All this data is entered into IMSMACO database and will be shared with partners by their request. Next slide, please. The main challenges remain back of funding for implementation of victim assistance activities in the field of economic reintegration of survivors in Tajikistan, physical rehabilitation service, and accessibility and removal of physical barriers. Survivors' pension are not enough to cover their needs. Thus, during pandemic period, government provided financial support to vulnerable families, but it's still area of concern and there are still need for additional support for newly injured survivors. Physical rehabilitation is one of the most crucial components of the victim assistance and needed our profound attention and sustainable funding. Public provision of assistance products in Tajikistan is centralized under state enterprise orthopedic plans run by the Ministry of Health and Social Protection and its 3 regional branches. During the 5 months on 2023, 24 landmine survivors received COAP. However, survivors living in the remote mine-affected areas are unserved. Strengthening of the technical capacity of the COP is one of the implemented victim assistance activities which is included in the National Humanitarian Mine Action Strategy of the Republic of Tajikistan. In order to address inaccessibility and provide outreach orthopedic service to landmine survivors living in the remote mine-affected districts, project proposal was developed and submitted to our main donor, U.S. Department of State. We expect that 2 mobile orthopedic service teams will be provide service close to the survivors' place of living in rural areas. Provision of this psychosocial support, TNMAG is continue providing constant support and counseling when needed. At present, TNMAG is closely working with OSCE, which will provide support to organize summer rehabilitation workshop for 20 survivors in August this year. The workshops program will include psychological, individual, and group session, art therapy, and session on victim assistance, rights of people with disabilities, and progress in achieving Oslo Action Plan. Next slide, please. During the planning, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation of victim assistance projects, we are always considering different needs and perspectives of women, girls, boys, and men in accordance with the victim assistance and disability provision contained in Oslo Action Plan and CRPT. For example, 23 women participate in victim assistance event this year. Next slide, please. But despite of all our efforts, landmine survivors and victims' families still remain one of the most vulnerable groups in our country. The main priorities for assistance in the implementation of our state's victim assistance obligation are improving economic condition of landmine survivors, strengthening technical capacity of the COAP, increasing capacity of organization of landmine survivors, and CRPT ratification by our country. Tajikistan is in need of financial and technical support in order to fulfill victim assistance obligation contained in the Oslo Action Plan. Next slide, please. Using this opportunity, on behalf of the government of Tajikistan, I would like to express our gratitude to our main donors, U.S. Department of State, OSCE, NPR, UN agencies, and RCRC for their contribution to victim assistance and disability-related activities in Tajikistan. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Tajikistan, for the comprehensive statement and outlining the efforts of supporting and integrating landmine survivors in all the sector environment. I now call upon Cambodia to take the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Excellency, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Royal Government of Cambodia, I would like to express my sincere thanks for the invitation to share the progress made by Cambodian in its effort to fulfill the commitment to assist mine ERW victims. Next, I would like to give key update on Cambodian implementation of the Oslo Action Plan in terms of victim assistance from Action 33 to 41. The CMA play its role to strengthen coordination, mobilize resources, and enhance technical assistance to support mine ERW victims and their family. Those activities introduce the continuum of care and include the provision of emergency response assistance and ongoing medical care to victims, medium to long-term rehabilitation, psychological and socio-economic support, vocational training, job placement, and address to rights of persons with disability through policy, plan, and legal frameworks. As a state party to the convention, Cambodia worked tirelessly to improve the quality of lives of survivors. Cambodia established various legal and operational frameworks to support mine victims, as well as persons with disability. The Cambodian Mine Action Standard on Victim Assistance was adopted in 2022, and the development of the Victim Assistance Practice Guidelines will be finished at the end of this year. Those frameworks provide roadmap for supporting mine survivors and as well as indirect victims. 65,005 casualties have been recorded by the CMWIS from 1979 to December 2022. The number of individuals killed and injured by anti-personnel mines provisionally recorded from January to December 2022 equal 41 casualties. 25 volunteer survivor network conduct direct interview with 3,420 persons with disability, including 1,295 landmine survivors throughout 279 villages in 55 communes across 25 districts in Cambodia. More than 23,000 persons with disability, include landmine survivors, receive service from physiotherapists and surgeries. First aid training was delivered to 962 people. Mr. Chair, Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, currently the CMA has been developing the referral mechanism and service directories and organized the National Victim Assistance Workshop on 25-26 May 2023. By inviting all relevant stakeholders for discussion and developing those input to both documents. We expect the document to be complete at the end of this year. The process will serve to address the gaps in service provision as identified through the qualities of life survey. More than 23,000 persons with disability includes 8,330 mines ERW victims receive physical rehabilitation support such as prosthetic, autistic, wheelchair, tricycle, and walking aids, including crutch, canes, and walking frame repairs. Physiological support training was developed and partnership between CMA and ACMAC to 160 staff from medical students, volunteer survivor network, CMWIS, and PRC. 361 children with disability, include landmines ERW victims, were provided support to study at primary school, and 53 persons with disability to public school. 156 persons with disability, include 50 mine ERW victims, were trained at vocational training center. The National Committee for Disaster Management developed its action plan for response to preparedness, safety, and protection of the Cambodians people by including landmine survivors and dangerous situations, including situation of armed conflict, humanitarian emergency, and natural disaster, in line with relevant international humanitarian and human rights law and international guidelines. Mr. Chair, despite those achievements, Cambodia faces several critical challenges. First, Cambodia is under-resourced in emergency support and ongoing medical care, rehabilitation service, physiological and physiosocial support, physiotherapy, occupational therapy, vocational training skill, community service. Moreover, capacity and cooperation of victim assistance stakeholders in data reporting remains a pressing issue. Cambodians take this opportunity to call for technical and financial assistance from all development partners so that together we can overcome those challenges and ensure that all members of our community can live with dignity and equality. Cambodian commitment to improve the quality of mind of victims and persons with disability are reassured every year and underscored by the effort just highlighted. Cambodian would also like to note its collaboration with the ISU to organize the third Global Victim Conference from 17 to 19 October 2023 in Phnom Penh. Finally, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to all development partners, the implementation support unit of the convention, Australian, Canada, Exit Worldwide, Humanitarian Inclusion, ICRC, New Zealand, Republic of Korea, UNDP, UNICEF, WHO, and those who might not be named here for their invaluable collaboration and contribute to Cambodian and undertaking its obligation to mind victims and other persons with disability. I thank you.
Thank you, Cambodia. We welcome the remarks on the various approaches of supporting landmine survivors, and also thank you for hosting this year's global conference on victim assistance, which we actually encourage states parties to participate in. Thank you. Let me call upon Algeria to take the floor.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. في البداية يود الوفد الجزائري التوجه إلى أوغندا وإلى أعضاء لجنة مساعدة الضحايا بخالص الشكر والتقدير على الجهود المعتبرة التي تكتسي قيمة نبيلة عالية وتسهم في تعزيز التكفل الملائم بضحايا الألغام.
Excuse me, the interpretation has delayed. We will inform you and we resume. Thank you.
في البداية يود الوفد الجزائري التوجه إلى أوغندا وإلى أعضاء لجنة مساعدة الضحايا بخالص الشكر والتقدير على جهودهم المعتبرة التي تكتسي قيمة نبيلة عالية وتسهم في تعزيز التكفل الملائم بضحايا الألغام. ويغتنم وفد بلادي هذه الفرصة لإطلاع اجتماعنا حول جهود الجزائر للتكفل بضحايا الألغام المضادة للأفراد الذين يتمتعون بحماية قانونية كاملة بصفتهم هذه وبصفتهم كأشخاص ذوي إعاقة. عكفت الجزائر منذ 1963 بكل عزم وحزم على مواجهة إرث الألغام المضادة للأفراد الذي خلفته الحقبة الاستعمارية، حيث تبنت بلادي استراتيجية وطنية سخرت لها طاقات بشرية وإمكانيات مادية هائلة ساهم فيها الجيش الوطني الشعبي سليل جيش التحرير الوطني بدور ريادي في تطهير الحدود الملغمة على طول خطي شارل وموريس وإزالة بقايا المتفجرات ليستفيد المواطنون من أراضيها لتجسيد مشاريع تنموية بما يخدم الصالح العام للوطن ويجعلها مصدراً للازدهار والرخاء. في نفس الإطار اعتمدت الدولة الجزائرية سياسة وطنية واعية بالنظر إلى عمق الآثار النفسية المترتبة عن تلك الألغام، حيث عملت من خلال وزارة المجاهدين وذوي الحقوق وقطاعات وزارية أخرى على ضمان التكفل الدائم بضحايا الألغام وتعزيز رعايتهم الصحية والاجتماعية والنفسية ومنحهم الحق في الحصول على منحة قابلة للمراجعة مما يمكنهم من الانتماء إلى التأمين الاجتماعي، بالإضافة إلى تحويل المنحة بعد وفاة الضحية إلى ذوي الحق. يستفيد ضحايا الألغام المضادة للأفراد على مستوى المركز الوطني لتجهيز معطوبي وضحايا ثورة التحرير الوطني وذوي الحقوق وملحقاته الستة المتواجدة عبر التراب الوطني: العاصمة، وهران، قالمة، تبسة، عين تيموشنت والنعامة، من خدمات مجانية تشمل بصفة عامة التكفل الطبي من طرف أطباء مختصين لتحديد أجهزة العطب الملائمة لكل حالة مع ضمان المتابعة اللازمة، التكفل بإعادة التأهيل الوظيفي والعلاج الطبيعي والفيزيائي والمعالجة بالمياه لفائدة المستفيدين، توفير التجهيزات على أساس التشخيص الطبي لا سيما أجهزة البدائل السمعية، اللواحق البصرية، أطقم الأسنان، الأفرشة الطبية والمساعدات التقنية على المشي والكراسي، صناعة وتركيب وتصليح وصيانة الأعضاء الاصطناعية ولواحقها باستعمال مواد وتجهيزات حديثة وذات جودة مطابقة للمقاييس المعمول بها، صناعة وتوفير الأحذية والأحزمة الطبية والتضميد وضمان خدمات المرافقة، مختلف الخدمات في مجال التجهيزات عبر التراب الوطني من خلال الوحدات الطبية التقنية المجهزة بعيادات متنقلة. إضافة إلى ما سبق، تتوفر وزارة المجاهدين على مكاتب استقبال بالمستشفيات العمومية المتواجدة عبر التراب الوطني، وهي مكلفة باستقبال الضحايا وتوجيههم إلى المصالح المختصة بالمستشفيات، بالإضافة إلى وجود مساعدات اجتماعية على مستوى المركزي والمحلي تقمن بزيارات تفقدية للضحايا قصد التدخل لفائدتهم وتحسين التكفل بهم بالتنسيق مع المصالح المختصة. وبخصوص الانفتاح على المجتمع المدني، فإن وزارة المجاهدين وذوي الحقوق تشجع حملات التوعية بمخاطر هذه الألغام، وتنظم ملتقيات وندوات وأيام مفتوحة حول مخاطر الألغام المضادة للأفراد وعواقبها الإنسانية، وتقدم الدعم المالي للجمعيات والمنظمات المعتمدة ذات الطابع الإنساني والاجتماعي الناشطة في هذا المجال. وفي مجال التعاون والمساعدة الدولية، فإن الجزائر تؤكد استعدادها الدائم لمد يدها للمجتمع الدولي وبذل قصارى جهودها بتجربتها الرائدة للمساهمة بطريقة فعالة ومنسقة في رفع تحدي إزالة الألغام المضادة للأفراد المزروعة في شتى بقاع العالم للحد من التهديدات الإنسانية والاقتصادية التي تشكلها هذه الألغام. كما أن الملتقى الدولي الذي نظمته الجزائر بعنوان من أجل إفريقيا آمنة وخالية من الألغام، الجزائر تجربة في مكافحة الألغام المضادة للأفراد يومي 30 و 31 ماي من سنة 2023 قد سجل اهتماماً كبيراً من المشاركين بالتجربة الجزائرية، بما في ذلك لدى الزيارة الميدانية التي تم تنظيمها لفائدة المشاركين في الملتقى إلى المركز الوطني لتجهيز معطوبي وضحايا ثورة التحرير الوطني وذوي الحقوق. وشكل هذا الملتقى الذي سيعرض وفد بلاد نتائجه خلال جلسة النقاش حول التعاون والمساعدة مناسبة تبلورت خلالها فرص للتعاون الثنائي مع عدد من الدول التي أبدت رغبتها في الاستفادة من الخبرة الجزائرية، بما في ذلك مساعدة الضحايا، وهي الآن محل دراسة من الجهات المعنية على مستوى التعاون الثنائي. ختاماً، أود تجديد الشكر للجنة مساعدة الضحايا التي كان لبلادي شرف تولي رئاستها سنة 2022، كما أتوجه بالشكر والتقدير لأعضاء وحدة دعم تنفيذ الاتفاقية، وشكراً على كرم الإصغاء.
Thank you, Algeria, for those remarks. I also want to thank you on behalf of the committee for hosting the regional conference on victim assistance at the end of the May for a mine-free Africa. And also remind that Algeria was the chair of the Victim Assistance Committee last year and encourage you to continue with those efforts. May I call upon Colombia to take the floor.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente. Al ser esta la primera vez que interviene mi delegación, deseo saludarle a usted, al presidente de la 21ª reunión de Estados parte y a la ISU, y felicitarlos por la organización y los esfuerzos desplegados en la realización de esta reunión. Señor presidente, señores representantes del Comité de Asistencia a las Víctimas, señores representantes del Comité Coordinador, delegados de los Estados parte y observadores, distinguidos delegados de la sociedad civil y demás participantes. Colombia agradece esta oportunidad y ratifica su compromiso con la Convención y con las medidas del Plan de Acción de Oslo relacionadas con la atención a los sobrevivientes y sus familias. En nuestro país, la lucha contra las minas está reconocida como una actividad de protección humanitaria y como un componente clave para el desarrollo, la acción humanitaria, la paz y la seguridad. Es así como mediante la acción integral contra minas antipersonal se busca disminuir el impacto social y económico que genera el uso de minas de naturaleza improvisada, que son fabricadas e instaladas por parte de actores armados no estatales. Lamentablemente, desde 1990, Colombia registra más de 12.000 víctimas a causa de las minas antipersonal. En 2022 se registraron oficialmente 138 nuevas víctimas y en lo corrido de 2023 se han presentado 34 más. Pero las víctimas no son un número o una estadística. Las víctimas son la base de los esfuerzos de la acción integral contra minas en el país. En el marco de la Convención, la renovación de la Ley de Víctimas, que regirá hasta el año 2031, demuestra el compromiso del Estado colombiano en la atención y reparación de las víctimas del conflicto armado, entre las cuales se encuentran las afectadas por minas antipersonal y por municiones sin explotar. En consonancia con las acciones 4 y 38 al 41 del Plan de Oslo. Con esta ley se ha logrado prolongar la atención en el tiempo, ampliar el campo de influencia de la gestión nacional y perfeccionar sus dinámicas. En Colombia, la Autoridad Nacional para la Acción Integral contra Minas se articula de forma constante con todos los actores claves para que la ruta de atención integral a las víctimas integre, articule y active todos los procedimientos y acciones tendientes a garantizar la supervivencia, dignidad y atención médica oportuna, constante y a tiempo de todos los afectados por estos artefactos explosivos. Actualmente, la Autoridad Nacional realiza el acompañamiento y fortalecimiento de la Red Nacional de Asociaciones de Sobrevivientes, en camino a convertirse en la primera Federación Nacional de Asociaciones de Sobrevivientes de Minas Antipersonal y Municiones sin explosionar. En este contexto, se ha impulsado la ejecución de proyectos de educación en el riesgo, para lo que el Estado ha asignado alrededor de 70 importantes cifras en el año 2022 y 2023. Como buena práctica, quisiera destacar el trabajo adelantado por el Instituto Nacional de Salud, que mediante el sistema de vigilancia epidemiológica y los centros reguladores de urgencias y emergencias en el país, logran identificar las áreas con presencia de víctimas de minas antipersonal, permitiendo así identificar, localizar áreas de riesgo y focalizar actividades de prevención dirigidas a las comunidades afectadas. Señor presidente, Colombia está trabajando en el fortalecimiento de los enfoques diferenciales que transversalizan la atención a las víctimas. La afectación de personas civiles requiere su atención con una visión que reconozca su diversidad. Niños, niñas, adolescentes, hombres, mujeres, minorías étnicas y otros grupos poblacionales requieren de procesos ajustados a sus necesidades específicas para garantizar la restitución de sus derechos y evitar así la revictimización. Es por eso que se está revisando y actualizando el sistema de gestión de información sobre actividades relativas a minas antipersonal, para que contenga variables asociadas a enfoques y necesidades diferenciales. Señor presidente, la asistencia a las víctimas en Colombia se sustenta y ejecuta cumpliendo con los planteamientos originados en los instrumentos internacionales sobre la materia, entre los que se destaca nuestra convención y su plan de acción, la Convención sobre los Derechos de las Personas con Discapacidad, asimismo. Pero también nuestro país cuenta con un marco normativo interno robusto para dar un mayor alcance a los procesos tendientes a la rehabilitación física, emocional, psicológica y a la satisfacción de los derechos de las víctimas. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Colombia, for the efforts. And now I call upon Iraq to take the floor.
السيد رئيس لجنة مساعدة الضحايا، أقدم بالشكر لكم وإلى السادة المنسقين في لجنة مساعدة الضحايا للاتفاقية للجهود المميزة التي يبذلونها في مجال مساعدة الضحايا، ونغتنم هذه المناسبة لنعيد تأكيدنا على التزام العراق بتنفيذ بنود الاتفاقية. السيد الرئيس، تعمل السلطة الوطنية المتمثلة بوزارة البيئة، دائرة شؤون الألغام، والمؤسسة العامة لشؤون الألغام في كردستان العراق وفق الخطة الوطنية السنوية على الإشراف والمتابعة في تنفيذ الإجراءات التي تسهل للضحايا وذويهم عملية الوصول الجيد إلى الخدمات الطبية والعلاجية والتأهيلية والاقتصادية بالتعاون مع كافة الجهات المعنية بتقديم الخدمات. وقد تم تنفيذ الإحصاء الميداني لضحايا الألغام والمخلفات الحربية منذ عام 2011 ولغاية الآن، حيث بلغ العدد الكلي للضحايا 48,554 ضحية، وبضمنهم 95 ضحية. وفي يوم أمس تعرض أحد المدنيين في محافظة أربيل إلى انفجار لغم أرضي مما تسبب في فقدان حياته، لذا أصبح العدد 95 ضحية من ضحايا الألغام المضادة للأفراد في عام 2023. وتلك البيانات يتم مشاركتها مع الجهات المعنية بتقديم الخدمات لذوي الإعاقة والاحتياجات الخاصة وضمنهم ضحايا الألغام. وفيما يخص الإجراءات الحكومية، فقد تشكلت هيئة رعاية ذوي الإعاقة والاحتياجات الخاصة بموجب القانون رقم 38 لسنة 2013، وهي الكيان الحكومي المعني برسم السياسات العامة لذوي الإعاقة والاحتياجات الخاصة بالعراق. ويضم مجلس الإدارة لهيئة رعاية ذوي الإعاقة والاحتياجات الخاصة ممثلين عن الوزارات المعنية بتقديم الخدمات وتيسير الوصول إليها، وتضم كذلك ممثلين عن ذوي الإعاقة أو المنظمات التي تمثلهم الذين يشاركون في التصويت على القرارات المتخذة في اجتماع مجلس الإدارة. وقد أصدرت الحكومة العراقية عدد من القوانين والتشريعات الخاصة بذوي الإعاقة والاحتياجات الخاصة وضحايا المتضررين جراء العمليات الإرهابية والأخطاء العسكرية، منها قانون رقم 20 لعام 2009 وتعديلاته اللاحقة بقانون رقم 57 لعام 2015 والتعديل الأول، وقانون رقم 2 لعام 2020 التعديل الثاني لتعويضهم عن تلك الأضرار. وتقوم وزارة العمل والشؤون الاجتماعية من خلال مؤسساتها بتقديم الدعم للضحايا بشكل عام بضمنهم ضحايا الألغام من خلال الخدمات المقدمة مثل إجازة التفرغ الوظيفي وتوفير راتب المعين المتفرغ وتسجيل العاطلين عن العمل تمهيدا لتشغيلهم والإعفاء الضريبي لمستفيدي السيارات المحورة، وتخصيص مقاعد دراسية بالمعاهد والكليات، وشمول 5% من ذوي الإعاقة بالتعيين المركزي ضمن القطاع العام. وكذلك تقوم هيئة رعاية ذوي الإعاقة والاحتياجات الخاصة بالتنسيق والتعاون مع الهيئة الوطنية للاستثمار في بناء دور واطئة الكلفة لذوي الإعاقة بشكل عام بضمنهم ضحايا الألغام، حيث بلغ عدد المستفيدين الكلي 23,678 مستفيدا لعام 2022. أما في مجال التعليم فقد تم إعادة النظر في تأليف المناهج الدراسية بما يتلائم مع قدرات ذوي الإعاقة والاحتياجات الخاصة. وفيما يخص الخدمات المقدمة من قبل وزارة الصحة، تقوم بتقديم الخدمات الصحية منها إجراء العمليات الجراحية للضحايا من جراء الألغام وتوفير كافة المستلزمات الطبية لكافة المستشفيات، وتقديم خدمات التأهيل البدني والعلاج الطبيعي وأدوات تقويم العظام والأطراف الاصطناعية والمعينات الطبية من خلال كافة مراكز التأهيل وورش ومراكز الأطراف الاصطناعية في بغداد والمحافظات، حيث بلغ عدد المستفيدين الكلي 2253 ضحية، وتشكيل لجان مركزية في كافة المحافظات لاحتساب نسبة العجز ضمن الشروط والسياقات المعمول بها. كما تقوم بإعداد برامج تدريبية للفنيين والحرفيين الذين يعملون في مجال التأهيل وصناعة الأطراف الاصطناعية والمعينات الطبية والمساند، وإعداد مسودة دليل الإحالة لتحسين الوصول الجيد للخدمات. السيد الرئيس، نظرا لتزايد أعداد المعاقين نتيجة الحروب السابقة والحروب ضد عصابات داعش ووجود مناطق ملوثة والتي يجري العمل على تطهيرها وحسب الإمكانات الحكومية المتاحة في الوقت الحاضر، إضافة إلى قلة التخصيصات المالية وصعوبة الوضع الأمني في بعض المحافظات، شكل تحدياً كبيراً في الحصول على الخدمات المتكاملة وصعوبة الوصول إليها، مما أدى إلى قلة عدد المنظمات الإنسانية العاملة في مجال مساعدة الضحايا بالعمل في العراق، مما انعكس سلباً على تقديم الخدمات آنفاً. ويعتبر أهم منجز للسلطة الوطنية متمثلة بدائرة شؤون الألغام والمؤسسة العامة لشؤون الألغام في إقليم كردستان لعام 2022 هو إطلاق المعيار الوطني لمساعدة الضحايا في العراق 13/10، وبدعم من قبل المنظمة الدولية للإعاقة، وتحديث الخطة الوطنية للإعاقة للأعوام 2023-2026 بما يتماشى مع خطتي عمل أوسلو ولوزان. السيد الرئيس، تتطلع اليوم من المجتمع الدولي القيام بدعم برنامج شؤون الألغام في مجال مساعدة ضحايا الألغام فيما يخص صناعة الأطراف الاصطناعية وبرامج التأهيل الطبي والمجتمعي والدعم النفسي وتدريب التقنيين لمواكبة التطور العلمي في هذا المجال لاستمرار وديمومة وصول الخدمات لهذه الشريحة من المجتمع. وشكرا جزيلا السيد الرئيس.
Thank you, Iraq, for the statement in responding to victims' challenges and the efforts to cater for their needs through health and rehabilitation services. I take note of the request to provide support in assistive technology and other areas. And that one you can liaise with the implementation support unit. Thank you. I call upon Ukraine to take the floor and will be followed by Peru. Iraq, Ukraine, you're welcome.
Dear Mr. Chair of the committee and members of the committee, dear Director of the ISU, dear participants of the meeting. Ukraine aligns itself with the statement of the EU on victims assistance and would like to add some words in our national capacity. In accordance with the Article 10 of the law of Ukraine, of mine action in Ukraine, provides for the provision of medical, psychological, professional, and social assistance to victims of explosive ordnance. This law provides for the distribution of functions between central executive authorities to provide assistance to victims. The Ministry of Health ensures the organization of medical care and medical services to victims in medical institutions that are subordinate to it. Minister of Social Policy of Ukraine, providing affected persons with a one-time monetary compensation and annual healthcare allowance, providing victims with free psychological and medical psychological rehabilitation in medical centers with reimbursement of travel and accommodation costs. Priority mandatory provision of places for affected children in preschool education institutions. Payments to the affected child of state social assistance intended for children with disabilities under the age of 18. Next slide, please. Next, please. Next one. Thank you. In accordance with Article 7 of the Law of Ukraine of the Status of War Veterans and Guarantees of their Social Protection, defines person injured by explosive remnants as person with disabilities and make use of all types of assistance and benefits provided for the Ukrainian legislation. Cash payments, pensions, allowance, and one-time payments. Provision for medicines, technical means like wheelchairs, artificial limbs, social, labor, and vocational rehabilitation, household services, medical rehabilitation, transportation by public transport, payment of utility bills. Annual medical examination, other type of social services. Thus, according to Ukrainian legislation, persons with disabilities, including victims of explosive ordnance, have a sufficient level of social protection and necessary medical care. However, the ongoing aggression of the Russian Federation doesn't allow for the full provision of the full list of assistance provided. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry, it's okay. Due to the use of prohibited Could you please return back one slide? Okay, thank you. Due to the use of prohibited anti-personnel mines and cluster munitions by the occupying Russian forces, the number of civilian casualties from explosive devices is constantly increasing. Since the beginning of the Russian invasion on February 24, 2022, there have been 407 incidents involving explosive devices have been recorded, 311 mine-related. A total of 644 people have been injured by explosive remnants of war, 489 mine-related, including 210 killed, 165 mine-related, and 434 injured, 424 mine-related. The Ministry of Reintegration of the Temporary Occupied Territories of Ukraine has established cooperation with local administrations to obtain information on mine and unexploded ordnance indicates and victims, incidents and victims. The database in the IMSMA core Mine Action Information Management System is being updated. Next, please. At present, in the conditions of limited resources caused by the large-scale invasion of the Russian Federation, the state is taking all possible measures to provide first aid and psychological assistance to the affected civilian population, including victims of mines and unexploded remnants of war. In accordance with Article 38 of the Civil Protection Corps, the SES State Emergency Service has a psychological service that provides psychological assistance to victims in emergency areas, including SES employees and civilians affected by explosive remnants of war. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Ukraine, for all the efforts for providing for the victims of landmine survivors. I now call upon Peru to take the floor.
Gracias. Señor presidente, quisiera empezar agradeciendo la labor del Comité de Asistencia a las Víctimas y el respaldo brindado por la Unidad de Apoyo a la Implementación. A continuación, brindaré una actualización sobre los esfuerzos del Perú para cumplir con las obligaciones de asistencia a las víctimas. En concordancia con la acción 33 del Plan de Acción de Oslo, el Centro Peruano de Acción contra Minas Antipersonal, denominado Contraminas, coordina con diversos sectores la incorporación de las víctimas de minas antipersonal en las políticas y programas del Estado peruano en materia de salud, educación y trabajo. Al mes de junio de 2023, la base de datos de Contraminas registra 348 víctimas de minas antipersonal, 150 de procedencia civil, 120 de las Fuerzas Armadas y 78 de la Policía Nacional. El 53% de las víctimas son menores de 60 años y las dos últimas víctimas en el proceso de desminado humanitario que viene ejecutando el Perú se reportó en el mes de mayo de 2019. Se tiene registro, asimismo, de 13 víctimas civiles vivas de sexo femenino, a las cuales el Estado peruano les brinda las mismas oportunidades de inclusión económica con una perspectiva de género. Esta base de datos contiene información que ha sido puesta a disposición de las entidades pertinentes del Estado peruano que garantizan una respuesta integral a las necesidades de las víctimas, teniendo en cuenta la acción 35 del Plan de Acción de Oslo. Cabe recordar que en el Perú existe igualmente un marco jurídico que asegura la inclusión y participación plena de las víctimas en la sociedad, existiendo un registro nacional para el desarrollo y la inclusión de las personas con discapacidad que se denomina CONADIS y que es una institución que busca establecer la política pública para las personas con discapacidad y promover sus derechos humanos y su plena inclusión. Las víctimas civiles son beneficiarias del Seguro Integral de Salud o del Seguro Social, a cuyos servicios acceden en los hospitales de sus respectivas regiones, de acuerdo a las normas pertinentes. En concordancia con la medida 40 del Plan de Acción de Oslo, el Estado peruano ha dispuesto también medidas como la declaratoria de emergencia contra el COVID y contra el dengue, dictadas por el gobierno central, y las medidas sanitarias adoptadas por el Ministerio de Salud a fin de garantizar la salud, seguridad y protección de todos los ciudadanos, en particular los grupos vulnerables. Contraminas continúa coordinando con el Instituto Nacional de Rehabilitación, el Instituto Nacional de Oftalmología, hospitales en las diferentes regiones y otras entidades públicas y privadas, la atención en materia de rehabilitación integral y ayuda psicológica, con especial atención en las víctimas civiles que constituyen el sector más desfavorecido. Señor presidente, por ser una prioridad la atención de las necesidades de la población vulnerable y su reinserción socioeconómica, el Estado peruano se permite solicitar que se continúe con el valioso apoyo de la cooperación internacional como un complemento a los esfuerzos nacionales en curso. Esta cooperación podría centrarse en el área, por ejemplo, de la capacitación de expertos en nuevas tecnologías y métodos utilizados en la elaboración de prótesis. También se podría colaborar en el diseño de proyectos para asegurar una cabal reinserción socioeconómica en beneficio de las víctimas. Por último, se podría explorar la posibilidad que algunos de los estados partes puedan otorgar facilidades para obtener insumos y materiales para elaboración de prótesis, aparatos para movilidad asistida, bastones y muletas. Concluyo, señor presidente, renovando el compromiso de mi país con el desarme, con la eliminación del sufrimiento causado por las minas antipersonal, el compromiso con las víctimas y con la debida implementación de esta convención. Gracias.
Statement and the efforts through programs for protecting and supporting the vulnerable landmine survivors. I now call upon South Sudan, which will be followed by Chad. South Sudan, take the floor. Thank you.
I would like to take this opportunity to thank the President and the Chair for Victim Assistance for inviting us to this meeting and give progress report and challenges in regards to Oslo Plan. Action 33, lead agents or entity, National Ministry of Gender, Child and Social Welfare, currently headed by Director for Disability. I'm in this next slide. Yeah, action 34, multi-sectoral efforts applied. Convention on Rights of Persons with Disability is ratified in February 2023. Celebration plan is on process. And National Legislative Assembly has established a committee overseeing disabilities issues at the Parliament. And the 5th Vice President Office is responsible for Gender and Social Welfare Cluster. Action 35, no centralized database. Mine Action Center collects and maintains information on casualties. However, there is no data on indirect victims. Next slide, action 36. Most of the health facilities are dilapidated and are destroyed during conflict. Currently, 80% of the health services delivery are supported by NGOs. And mine victims, PRW, still face challenge to access emergency first aid in most states of South Sudan. Action 37, national referral mechanism is in place. However, it does not target mine or ERW victims in need of further medical support. And there is no service directory. Next slide. Action 38, rehabilitation, psychosocial, and psychological services to mine and ERW victims are mainly supported by international NGOs. Inadequate mental health and psychosocial support to mine victims and all persons with disability. We have conducted an assessment on mental health in Juba City because of the increasing rate of mental health psychosocial service cases among persons with disabilities and others. There is no peer-to-peer support program in South Sudan. And next is action 38. 39. There are efforts made to remove barriers on mine and ERW victims. Mine and ERW victims are not always targeted. And high tax coupled with inflation added on challenges hindering social integration of mine victims. Next slide, action 40. We have integrated safety and protection of all persons with disability in situations of risk, such as armed conflicts and natural disasters. Action 41. There is effective and strong participation by organizations or persons with disability. The next slides. Action 3. National Disability and Inclusive Policy and National Disability Action Plan included gender and diversity. Efforts made to eliminate harmful traditional practices against women with disability. There is increased employment and participation of women with disability within international NGOs, government, and organizations of persons with disabilities. Data not disaggregated in most reports provided by partners. No data on the number of women with disability. Women with disabilities still face greater challenges. Advocacy on place to support women with disability. The next. So the challenges, partial legal framework in place on disability concern, difficulties to access basic services in rural areas, socioeconomic empowerment projects does not target mine and ERW victims, communication and mobility challenges in emergencies, limited access to assistive device in rural remote areas. Most health facilities lack medicine, medical capacities, and equipment to conduct surgical activities in case of emergencies. Difficult to gain access to data on disability. There is poor logistics, bad weather condition, and insecurity to the states. The next slides, the priority for victim assistance, enforcing implementation of the Convention on Rights of Persons with Disability so that is inclusive of victim assistance, establishment of centralized database, and sustainable socio-economic empowerment, and expansion of rehabilitation services to rural areas, training to the National Legislative Assembly on the Convention on Rights of Persons with Disability to facilitate the approval of legal frameworks on disability concerns. Efforts are made to ensure better provision for persons with disability in the Constitution. Intersectoral approach continued to be embraced with the different ministries and international NGOs to implement victim assistance. It is continued advocacy for the government to allocate funding on disability programs. And there is meaningful participation and inclusion of persons with disability. Thank you.
Thank you, South Sudan, for appraising us on the efforts the government is taking to provide for the landmine survivors. And also the committee notes the challenges you have identified, and we will continue to cooperatively work together to see that the challenges are addressed. I will now call upon Chad, which will be followed by Angola. Thank you.
Okay. Ouais. Merci, Monsieur le Président, de nous avoir donné la parole. Alors, conformément aux obligations, aux engagements nationaux et internationaux, le Tchad met en place les activités d'assistance aux victimes par l'entremise de son autorité nationale qui reste le Haut Commissariat national au déminage à travers sa direction d'éducation aux risques et assistance aux victimes, en étroite collaboration avec les principaux partenaires institutionnels et associatifs, ainsi qu'à fait avec la pleine participation des victimes, des mines et autres personnes handicapées. Bien que les avancées sur l'assistance aux victimes restent très faibles, Le Tchad renouvelle souvent ses efforts pour développer une stratégie globale qui devra permettre la mise en application des droits des victimes des mines et restes explosifs de guerre de façon pérenne et en accord avec les directives internationales les plus récentes. Ainsi, nous énumérons quelques avancées sur l'assistance aux victimes au Tchad. Il y a eu l'adoption du projet de loi par les députés portant ratification de la Convention des Nations Unies relative aux droits des personnes handicapées. Aujourd'hui, le système de gestion de l'information pour la lutte anti-mine au Tchad totalise 522 victimes identifiées et enregistrées depuis 2022, dont 257 victimes répertoriées par l'ONG CKDEV, le projet Prodeco. Nous avons fixé également quelques priorités, notamment nous voudrions soutenir directement les victimes des mines, restes explosifs de guerre et les personnes handicapées, renforcer les capacités nationales dans le cadre du plan stratégique, faire la mise à jour et mettre en œuvre le plan national d'assistance aux victimes, soutenir et renforcer les victimes des mines, impliquer les victimes des mines dans tous les projets les concernant. Nous adoptions également une approche non discriminatoire et sensible à l'aspect du genre dans toutes les activités les concernant. Nous souhaiterons également mettre sur pied un projet qui inclut les mécanismes de coordination existants entre les requérants, les bénéficiaires, les autres acteurs impliqués et les autorités locales. Renforcer également les mécanismes existants d'identification et de référencement afin d'alimenter la base de données IMISMA. Mener des actions de sensibilisation, de formation, d'appui technique et potentiel d'appui financier sur la base des propositions des micro-projets. Parmi nos activités, il y a eu également des remises de prothèses par l'entremise de l'UNICEF. Il y a eu des distributions de vivres. Il y a eu des référencements également dans la région du lac Tchad. Ce sont là quelques images. Donc, en conclusion, si les mines tuent et mutilent autrefois dans une partie bien connue du Tchad, aujourd'hui, l'ampleur des dégâts se propage sur l'ensemble du territoire national malgré les efforts du gouvernement tchadien à travers le HCD. Avec l'adoption du projet de loi relatif aux personnes handicapées, nous osons croire que la situation des victimes s'améliorera. Nous sollicitons l'appui technique et une coopération agissante afin de développer ce volet qui est resté toujours dans une phase de balbutiement. Comme nous n'avons jamais cessé de le rappeler, malgré l'appui financier de l'UNICEF et du gouvernement tchadien, le volet d'assistance aux victimes demeure le volet le plus faible dans la lutte de l'action contre les mines au Tchad. Je vous remercie.
Thank you, Chad, for appraising on the activities and obligations of the landmine victims, and we continue to engage for the better. Yeah, thank you. And now I call upon Angola, which will be followed by Zimbabwe.
Thank you, Chair. Angola will make a presentation in Portuguese. Okay.
Nós temos 4 questões. E a primeira tem a ver com a melhorias que foram introduzidas na perspectiva da conferência. Angola estabeleceu a norma de assistência às vítimas de minas, seguindo exatamente o padrão internacional IMAS. Foi melhorada a interação com as ONGs e organizações baseadas na fé, reportando regularmente e com dados desagregados. Foram realizados 4 workshops sobre assistência às vítimas de minas em diferentes províncias, nomeadamente Luanda, Mochico, Bié e Namibe. Realizamos também um workshop sobre a gestão de informação com os nossos parceiros de assistência. Foi realizado um encontro de coordenação com todos os operadores de assistência às vítimas, a construção no país de 10 novos hospitais e equipados com meios necessários e tecnologia de ponta, a construção de novas instalações para o Centro Ortopédico de Lubango, na província da Huila, a identificação de 5 vítimas de engenhos explosivos, sendo 3 do sexo masculino, de 10, 30 e 50 anos, e 2 do sexo feminino, de 30 e 40 anos, na província de Luanda. No total foram assistidas 21.353 pessoas com deficiência, sendo 4.354 vítimas de minas. Perspectiva-se a recuperação do Centro Ortopédico da Gabela, a continuação da produção de próteses e órteses, muletas e serviço de fisioterapia nos seguintes centros: a Princesa Diana, Wambo, Dr. Antônio Agostinho Neto, Viana, Luanda, e o Centro Ortopédico e de Reabilitação de Bié. Em média, cada centro produz mensalmente 300 próteses, 350 orteses e 250 muletas, e 7.500 utentes atendidos em serviço de fisioterapia. E como novidade, nos últimos meses foram abertos serviços de fisioterapia respiratória e de terapia ocupacional. Em termos de assistência médica, 21 mil pessoas beneficiaram dos serviços nesta área. E temos como os principais desafios a existência de dados desagregados e vítimas de todas as províncias do país, e pensamos, para ultrapassar essa situação, então, nós atualizamos o projeto de registro das vítimas, carecendo apenas de financiamento, a implementação de ações de assistência de uma forma coordenada com todos os operadores. Pensamos na elaboração do Plano Nacional de Assistência 2023-2027 e a elaboração do Plano Individual de Reabilitação. Melhoramento da coordenação intersectorial e a reportagem pelos operadores das atividades realizadas ao nível local à autoridade nacional. Para isso, a realização de encontros de coordenação e temáticos numa base regular, onde, entre outras, são apresentados os relatórios de atividades. Facilitar o acesso aos fundos para assistência às vítimas. Pensamos, sim, elaborar um projeto para mobilização de fundos e implementação de ações de assistência às vítimas de minas. Bom, temos uma tabela dos acidentes que ocorreram ao longo do ano de 2022. Temos 35 acidentes, que vitimou mortalmente 41 pessoas, 66 feridos, 26 mulheres, 32 raparigas, 36 rapazes e 13 homens. Já no primeiro semestre deste ano, 2023, ocorreram 10 acidentes, com 6 mortos, 18 feridos, mulheres 3, raparigas 8, rapazes 9 e 4 homens. Principais prioridades na área de assistência, vamos assegurar o funcionamento dos centros ortopédicos e de reabilitação com a disponibilização de material, equipamento e pessoal qualificado, o estabelecimento de serviços de reabilitação física em todos os hospitais provinciais e municipais, o registro de vítimas em todas as províncias e a consequente inserção de dados na nossa base de dados nacional, e a redução do número de acidentes com minas antipessoal, com a intensificação de ações de educação sobre o risco de engenhos explosivos. O último ponto, os esforços envidados no âmbito da inclusão econômica, os programas Cuenda, PREI e outros usados pelo governo têm contribuído para o bem-estar das populações, em particular das vítimas de minas. 339 mulheres vítimas de engenhos explosivos apoiadas com fundos e meios para iniciar atividades geradoras de renda, 152 raparigas e rapazes também beneficiaram de formação profissional integrados em programa de empreendedorismo, e 213 homens integrados em diferentes iniciativas de trabalho e formação. Já a implementação do Fundo Nacional de Emprego de Angola irá facilitar o acesso ao trabalho e o mercado de trabalho às muitas vítimas no país. Pensamos também com a implementação de diferentes programas pelo governo e pelos seus parceiros, alimentam a esperança de dias melhores para as vítimas em Angola. E muito obrigado.
Thank you, Angola, for the comprehensive statement. I now hand over to the Director ISU for a brief program on some side events, and the Victim Assistance Committee will resume in the afternoon for more speakers. I want to thank you very much. Over to you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Just to brief you on the side events that are ongoing during the lunchtime, we have neglected mine action contexts, legacy and new contamination beyond humanitarian crisis in room B, organized by Danish Refugee Council and Danish Permanent Mission. We have the sustainable and inclusive localization, moving from capacity building to capacity sharing in room C1, organized by Geneva International Center for Humanitarian Demining. And then there's a landmine-free Caucasus by 2030 in room C2 by Links Europe, and this one is by invitation only. So thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
So we close for lunch and resume at 3 o'clock.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Yeah.
Chair.